The models changed this week, and what they are confirming right now is something many forecasters have never seen before. A Super El Niño is officially here. NOAA declared it on June 11th, and the data coming in from the European Centre, from NOAA's CFSV2, from IRI Columbia University, all of it is pointing to the same extraordinary conclusion. This event is strengthening faster than almost any El Niño in modern history. It is already reshaping jet streams, heat patterns, drought zones, and hurricane tracks across the entire country. Today, I'm going to show you what is happening right now across the plains and the coast. I'm going to take you through the next 7 days with specific dates and specific cities. Then I am going to take you deep into the long range, into the pattern shift that will define your entire summer, and then I am going to show you the one part of this story that almost nobody is connecting clearly enough. Stay with me. This is the most important weather briefing I have put together this year. I am Liam, and this is Sky Space Lab, the channel where we go deeper into the data so you understand not just what is happening, but why it is happening. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now. We cover severe weather, atmospheric science, and long-range forecasting at a level of depth you will not find most places. And today, I need you to share this video. What I am about to show you affects 36 states. It affects drought conditions across 61% of the lower 48. It affects your summer heat, your storm season, and your hurricane risk from the Gulf all the way to the East Coast. Let us get into the data. Let us start with what is happening right now today, June 19th. The atmosphere is already responding to El Niño. You can see it in the pressure maps, you can see it in the jet stream signature, and you can see it in the severe weather threat that is setting up across multiple regions of the country as we head through this week. The Storm Prediction Center has a severe weather risk in place across the central and northern plains today. The primary hazards are damaging winds, large hail up to 2 inches in diameter, and an isolated tornado threat. The area of greatest concern right now stretches from the western Dakotas through Nebraska, with the tornado probability reaching 5% near the central Dakotas. Do not dismiss that number. A 5% tornado probability with discrete supercell potential is significant. If you are near Aberdeen, Rapid City, or Bismarck, you need a weather action plan ready to execute this afternoon and tonight. Here is who needs to watch this the most right now. Residents in central South Dakota, including Pierre and Huron. Communities in southwestern North Dakota near Dickinson and Minot. Eastern Wyoming, including Casper and Douglas, and down into the Nebraska Panhandle near Scottsbluff and Alliance. These are the zones where rotating supercells are most likely to develop between 2 in the afternoon and 8 in the evening local time. The latest GFS run and the European model are in agreement that the initial storm mode will be discrete supercells. That is the most dangerous mode for tornado production. Around 7 to 9 in the evening, those storms will likely upscale into a broken line, with the primary threat shifting to damaging wind gusts in the 60 to 70 mile per hour range. Some isolated gusts near 75 miles per hour cannot be ruled out. Instability values across the central Dakotas are running between 2,000 and 3,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE this afternoon. The low-level jet tonight is expected to strengthen significantly, adding rotational energy to the atmosphere at a time when visual confirmation will be difficult. That combination, strong instability, a strengthening low-level jet, and poor visibility conditions, is exactly what leads to dangerous tornado events after dark. If you are in these zones, do not wait for a warning to act. Have multiple ways to receive alerts. Make sure your phone is charged. For the southern tier, there is a separate threat worth watching through this evening. Thunderstorm clusters are expected to develop across Texas and the Gulf region through tonight. The primary hazard there is heavy rainfall and the potential for localized flash flooding. Rainfall totals in some areas of coastal Texas and Louisiana could reach 2 to 3 inches in a short time window. Flash flood watches may be issued for portions of the Houston metro and coastal Louisiana. Monitor local National Weather Service discussions closely. I also want to flag something that does not always get enough attention in severe weather coverage: the hail threat. Today across the central Dakotas and into Nebraska, hail sizes in the range of 2 inches in diameter are possible from the most organized supercells. That is baseball-sized. 2-inch hail can punch through car roofs, shatter windows, and cause serious damage to vehicles caught in the open. If you are near the warning area today and you see threatening skies approaching, get your car into a garage or under a solid shelter immediately. I have seen entire parking lots of vehicles written off by a single large hail-producing supercell. Do not underestimate the property damage potential, even if your primary tornado risk is relatively low. Now let me take you through the next 7 days, and pay close attention here because the pattern evolution matters for your planning. Friday, June 20th. The severe weather threat shifts slightly eastward. Nebraska, Kansas, and Iowa move into focus. The low-pressure system responsible for today's plains activity will be tracking northeast through the upper Midwest. The Storm Prediction Center is watching a large, somewhat disorganized zone across the Midwest for at least isolated to scattered severe storms. The tornado risk on Friday appears lower than today, with the primary concerns being large hail in the 1 inch to 1.5 inch range and damaging wind gusts reaching 60 miles per hour. But here is something I want you to hold in mind for later in this video. The Midwest has been in a prolonged quiet period for severe weather over the past 30 to 40 days. That quiet ends this week. Are you in Illinois, Iowa, or Indiana? When did you last go over your family severe weather plan? Drop that in the comments below because what is coming for the Midwest in the second half of June is something you need to be ready for. Saturday, June 21st. The low-pressure system tracks into the Great Lakes. Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan move into focus for scattered severe weather. These states have seen very little organized storm activity over the past several weeks. There were reportedly 0 tornado warnings in Indiana during the entire month of May. That quiet is ending. Storm mode on Saturday remains uncertain. It will come down to how strong the low-pressure system is at that point, and how the atmosphere is configured. But I think at least some isolated organized severe storms will be on the table for the Indiana and Ohio region through the afternoon and evening hours. Sunday, June 22nd through Monday, June 23rd. The pattern reloads. Attention shifts back to the west as another shortwave trough drops out of the Pacific Northwest into the northern Great Plains. The Dakotas and Nebraska are back under the severe weather gun by Monday and Tuesday of next week. The NWS and SPC will be watching the system closely as we enter the following work week. Damaging winds, large hail, and a tornado threat are all possible. Here is the updated just 1 hour ago note I want you to carry through the rest of this video. This reload pattern, where one storm system exits and another immediately follows out of the west, is not random. It is being driven by the El Nino atmospheric signal that is already establishing itself in the jet stream. This is the regime we are entering for the summer, and understanding it changes how you need to think about the next several months. So let me give you the straight answer on what Friday through Sunday looks like for the Southeast, the Mid-South, and anyone in the Tennessee Valley or Appalachians. The cold front that pushed through this week is going to give you a remarkable few days. Lower humidity, cooler temperatures, very little rain outside of a few mountain showers. If you've been waiting for a window to get outdoor projects done, to open up the house, to go for a long run without drowning in humidity, this is it. Take advantage of it. Because by late Saturday and especially into Sunday, the warm air pushes back north quickly. The Gulf moisture returns. Dew points climb back into the 60s and the thunderstorm chances ramp right back up. This break is short. Use it well. For the southeast this week, an unusually powerful cold front is pushing through, remarkable for mid-June. Temperatures from the Carolinas through Georgia and northern Florida are running 10 to 20 degrees below normal. Greenville, South Carolina is holding in the 60s when it should be near the mid-80s. Asheville, North Carolina is seeing overnight lows in the upper 40s. Charlotte is cool and refreshing. This cool spell will not last. By this weekend, the ridge rebuilds and warmth returns rapidly. But pay attention to the air mass return from the southwest beginning Saturday. That is when humidity surges back in and thunderstorm chances ramp up again across the entire region. The 7-day temperature outlook for the western United States is deeply concerning. The Pacific Northwest and Great Basin are trending 4 to 6 degrees above normal through the end of June. California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and Washington are all tracking above average heat. Excessive heat watches and warnings are possible for portions of the desert southwest by next week as the ridge strengthens. That is a direct and measurable El Nino fingerprint on the atmosphere. Here is what that heat looks like for specific regions, and I want you to listen carefully if your state is in this list. For Washington, Oregon, and Northern California, temperatures are forecast to run 3 to 6 degrees above normal through late June. Portland is looking at highs near 100 degrees during heat events that would typically be limited to the peak of summer in August. If you are in the Pacific Northwest, check on your neighbours. Heat mortality in that region is historically high because the infrastructure, the housing stock, the older buildings, was not built for extended heat like this. For Nevada, Arizona and Utah, Phoenix is already tracking well above normal for June, and the National Weather Service is flagging the potential for triple-digit heat stretching into record territory during the July peak. Death Valley will almost certainly exceed 125 degrees during the worst of the summer heat events. For Texas, especially far west Texas, the Hill Country, and the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, heat indices above 110 degrees are likely during the peak summer ridge events. The urban heat island in Dallas amplifies everything. For the Mid-Atlantic, the Carolinas and Georgia, while the southeast enjoys cooler than normal temperatures this week thanks to the front pushing through, that relief ends by this weekend. By late June, above normal warmth returns, and the humidity surges with it. Atlanta, Charlotte and Raleigh are all trending above normal for the second half of June and through July. But here is where the story takes a major turn, because what happens after the next 10 days changes everything. The big picture atmospheric transition happening right now is one of the most significant events in modern meteorology. The weekly Nino 3.4 index, the primary measurement zone for El Nino strength in the central equatorial Pacific, reached positive 0.9 degrees Celsius as of mid-May. NOAA officially declared El Nino on June 11th. And the latest data from NOAA's CFSV2 model and the ECMWF ensemble system show this event strengthening rapidly toward anomalies that could exceed positive 2 degrees Celsius, the threshold for a Super El Niño, by late summer or early fall. Let me give you the context that makes this significant. The scientific community formally classifies a Super El Niño when sea surface temperature anomalies in the Nino 3.4 monitoring region of the central equatorial Pacific Ocean exceed plus 2 degrees Celsius above the long-term average. Events that reach this threshold include the 1997 to 1998 event, the most studied and most destructive El Nino in modern history, and the 2015 to 2016 event. The current event is tracking to rival those. Some individual ECMWF ensemble members are already projecting anomalies approaching plus 4 degrees Celsius by the peak. The median ECMWF run for the August through October period is targeting roughly plus 3 degrees Celsius. That is extraordinary for this time of year, when events have not even reached their typical seasonal peak. NOAA now places nearly 90% odds on this event reaching at least strong intensity by autumn. They place over 63% odds on a very strong event. IRI Columbia University's forecast plume assigns 98% probability to El Nino conditions persisting through the May through July period, with continuation expected through the remainder of 2026. The driving mechanism behind this rapid intensification is a massive oceanic Kelvin wave. This is a pulse of warm water that formed in the western equatorial Pacific and has been propagating eastward through the subsurface of the ocean for months. As it travels east, it rises toward the surface, heating the upper ocean in the critical monitoring regions off the coast of South America. This subsurface heat engine is what gives forecasters confidence in continued intensification. The heat is already there. It is just rising to the surface. Once it does, the atmospheric coupling, the feedback loop between ocean warmth and atmospheric circulation, amplifies rapidly. I want to put one number in front of you that I think captures the scale of what is happening. NOAA forecasters are currently assigning a 63% probability to sea surface temperatures exceeding plus 2.0 degrees Celsius in the Nino monitoring region. That is the threshold for a very strong event by NOAA's own classification system. 63% is not a marginal probability. That is the most likely scenario among the options. And some individual ECMWF ensemble members, not the mean, not the median, but the outlier runs that represent the tail of the distribution, are projecting values approaching plus 4.5 degrees Celsius by the time this event peaks in the November through January window. To put that in perspective, the 1997 to 1998 event, the benchmark Super El Niño that is still used as the reference for the worst-case scenario, peaked at approximately plus 2.3 degrees Celsius on the traditional Nino 3.4 index. Some of what we are seeing in the model tail is projecting nearly double that. I am not saying that is the likely scenario. I am saying that is what is in the ensemble spread. And when you are looking at a climate event of this potential magnitude, you watch the full range. not just the middle. So what does this mean for the rest of your summer in concrete terms? The western United States faces an intensifying heat and drought scenario. Drought currently covers approximately 61% of the lower 48 states as of this week. The Pacific Northwest faces the highest risk of expanded and deepening drought. Washington state has seen drought emergencies for 4 consecutive years. El Nino typically reduces snowpack, accelerates snowmelt, and compresses the runoff season in the Cascades and Northern Rockies. Less water in the reservoirs, earlier peak fire danger, an extended dry season through summer and into fall. California is the most uncertain wildcard in the West. The 1997 to 1998 Super El Niño brought devastating floods and mudslides to Southern California during the winter. But the 2015 to 2016 event, nearly as strong, largely missed the state. The difference came down to the precise position of the jet stream and the timing of the event. El Nino creates a paradox in California and much of the West. Wetter winters and strong years can grow abundant vegetation, which then becomes wildfire fuel when the summer drought arrives. That is a cycle that land managers and fire agencies from the Pacific Northwest through the Southwest are watching carefully heading into this fire season. The southern tier presents a very different story. For Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and the Gulf Coast states, El Nino historically brings drought relief in the fall and winter through an enhanced subtropical jet. During the summer months, the active storm track along the subtropical jet also keeps moisture flowing into those areas. The southern plains and the Gulf Coast states have the most potential to gain from this El Nino. It could help end multi-year drought conditions that have persisted across parts of Texas and the southern plains. The Midwest is the severe weather corridor. When the subtropical jet is active and the polar jet is sending regular shortwaves across the northern tier, the collision zone in the central corridor produces repeated opportunities for organized storm systems. Datios, fast-moving squall lines capable of producing widespread winds over 60 miles per hour and covering hundreds of miles in a matter of 12 to 24 hours, are historically most active from South Dakota through Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and into Kentucky during June and July. That corridor is exactly where I expect the primary severe weather action to concentrate this summer. If you live in Des Moines, Chicago, Indianapolis, Columbus, or Louisville, this is your season to stay weather aware every single day. Most channels are not showing you this part, but it matters for everyone in that zone. Let me also address the temperature picture for summer overall. The Climate Prediction Center's outlook places 36 states in the favored for above-average temperature category through the summer months. The warmest anomalies are concentrated in the west and spreading into the central states through July and August. When you add the El Nino warming signal on top of a global baseline that is already running at historically elevated levels, the 12-month period from April 2025 through March 2026 is the warmest ever recorded globally. You get a recipe for potentially exceptional summer heat across much of the nation. Carbon Brief projects 2026 as the second warmest year on record. James Hansen's team at Columbia University projects global temperatures could reach 1.7 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels by 2027. This is one of the strongest and fastest developing El Nino events I have tracked. The atmospheric fingerprints are already visible. The jet stream is already responding. Your summer is already being shaped by this event, even if you cannot feel it yet. Before we wrap up, there is one more thing you need to know, and this is the part I have been building toward. Everything I have shown you so far, the severe weather threat, the drought, the heat, the jet stream shift, that is the setup. What I am about to show you connects all of it to something that is going to affect millions of people along the coast and in the Gulf region specifically. Let us talk about the tropical season, and let us start with the Atlantic, because what El Nino does to Atlantic hurricane activity is critical for anyone living from Corpus Christi to Cape Hatteras. Here is the fundamental mechanism. El Nino dramatically increases vertical wind shear across the tropical Atlantic basin. Shear is the difference in wind speed and direction between different layers of the atmosphere. When the shear is strong, it tears developing tropical systems apart. It literally rips the tops off of storm columns before they can organize into hurricanes. During strong El Nino events, this hostile shear extends across the main development region, the stretch of open ocean from the Lesser Antilles all the way to the African coast, and it acts as a powerful suppressor of Atlantic hurricane activity. Colorado State University, led by Dr. Philip Klotzbach and his research team, released their updated June 10th forecast for the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season. This update is notable because it actually lowers their numbers from the April forecast. CSU now calls for 11 named storms, 5 hurricanes, and just 2 major hurricanes. Compare that to the historical average from 1991 to 2020, 14 named storms and 7 hurricanes. CSU is projecting roughly 60% of average activity. NOAA's official outlook issued in late May calls for 8 to 14 named storms with a 55% chance of below normal activity. Both agencies agree El Nino is the dominant driver suppressing this season. Through the first 13 days of the 2026 hurricane season, the Atlantic Basin has produced 0 tropical activity, 0 named storms. The hostile shear environment is already visible in satellite data. The Saharan dust outbreak across the tropical Atlantic is thick. Sea surface temperatures in the main development region, the eastern and central tropical Atlantic, are running below average. You have to travel all the way west into the Gulf and the Western Caribbean to find ocean warmth that could support development. So should you relax? Let me answer that carefully. The Gulf waters right now are anomalously warm. Water temperatures across the Gulf are running above average, and that warmth is not going away. El Nino's shear is most powerful in the eastern Atlantic and the Caribbean. It weakens considerably as you approach the Gulf itself and the southeastern coastline. A tropical system that manages to form in the Gulf, or that tracks through the western Caribbean before encountering that shear, has far less exposure to the hostile environment than a system trying to develop near the Cape Verde Islands. When the GFS and European model both start flagging something in the Gulf, you pay attention. I have been watching the long-range ensemble signals carefully, and there are periods in mid to late July and through August where the models show closed low-pressure systems with tropical characteristics attempting to develop in the Gulf region. These are too far out to forecast with confidence. But the environment we're heading into, warm Gulf waters, a shear pattern that weakens near the Gulf itself, and a subtropical jet that could occasionally relax its grip, is not one where you can simply assume the Gulf is protected. Remember what history tells us. Hurricane Andrew formed during the 1991 to 1992 El Niño and made landfall in southern Florida as a Category 5 storm. The 2023 to 2024 El Nino was strong, and 19 named storms developed anyway because Atlantic sea surface temperatures were so anomalously warm they overwhelmed the shear. Right now, the University of Arizona's group is forecasting 20 named storms for 2026, arguing that the Atlantic Ocean warmth factor could again overpower the El Nino shear. CSU says 11. That disagreement tells you everything about the uncertainty in this season. The smart move is to be prepared regardless of what the seasonal numbers say. Now let me bring in the East Pacific because this is where El Nino completely flips the story. While El Nino suppresses the Atlantic, it energizes the East Pacific. Warmer sea surface temperatures and dramatically reduced shear in the Eastern Pacific Basin create near-ideal conditions for tropical development. Invest areas are already being monitored west of Central America. Amanda and Boris are being watched as early-season East Pacific candidates. Residents along the Pacific coast of Mexico and Central America are facing elevated tropical risk all season long. More relevantly for the continental United States, a strong East Pacific tropical system tracking northwest could push enormous amounts of moisture into the desert southwest and southern California. That can trigger the Arizona and New Mexico monsoon early and with exceptional intensity. And there is a scenario, one that both the European model and the GFS have flagged at the long range, though with very low confidence, where a tropical system crossing Central America from the Pacific re-intensifies in the Gulf. I want to be very clear that this is a speculative scenario at this range. Models disagree on timing, track, and even whether development occurs. The ensemble support for specific Gulf development remains limited, but the environment is something I am watching daily. The Gulf water temperatures are warm enough to support rapid intensification. The shear windows that open up as the upper level high shifts westward could provide brief but dangerous development opportunities. I am not forecasting a Gulf hurricane. I am telling you the environment does not rule it out. Here is my direct question to you. I want you to scroll down to the comments right now and answer this. Where are you watching from, and what is your biggest weather concern this summer? Is it the heat dome building over your region? Is it the drought threatening your water supply? Is it the severe storm and datio risk in the Midwest? Or are you along the Gulf Coast keeping one eye on the tropics? Every comment gets read. Tell me what you are most worried about. The latest ECMWF run continues to support everything I have shown you today. The Super El Niño signal is not weakening. The CFS-V2 is not backing off. Multiple ECMWF ensemble members are targeting +4 degrees Celsius anomalies by the full peak, values that would challenge the historical record. When two of the world's leading modelling systems show this level of agreement on an event of this magnitude, you do not dismiss it. You track it every single day. NOAA's next ENSO-diagnostic discussion is scheduled for July 10th. Between now and then, I will be watching the weekly Nino 3.4 index for any sustained move above +1.0 degrees Celsius. That would push consensus firmly toward a moderate to strong event ahead of schedule. I will be watching subsurface heat content in the equatorial Pacific for continued eastward propagation of the Kelvin wave signal, and I will be watching for any relaxation of westerly wind bursts in the western Pacific. Those are the clearest mechanical confirmation that this event is truly deepening. On the severe weather front, the June 8th through June 15th window for the upper Midwest is already flagged in the ensemble data as a significant active weather period. Multiple intense low-pressure systems are signalled. The potential for organised severe weather outbreaks exists. I will have a dedicated update on that window before we reach it. The Datio corridor from South Dakota through Iowa, Illinois, Indiana and into Kentucky needs to be on alert for the entire summer. Mid-June through late July is historically the most active period for these events, and the El Niño pattern establishes exactly the kind of active jet stream configuration that drives them. Check your severe weather plan now, know your shelter locations, know how you receive warnings after midnight, because Datios frequently strike in the overnight hours when radar coverage and public awareness are lowest. If this video showed you something you did not know before today, give it a thumbs up. It takes 2 seconds and it helps this channel reach the people who need this information most. Subscribe if you have not already. I post detailed, data-driven weather analysis every single day during active periods, and share this video with someone who lives in the West, the Midwest, or along the Gulf Coast. Because what I have laid out today is not a seasonal curiosity. It is a fundamental shift in how the atmosphere is going to behave for the next several months. It touches everyone from Seattle to Miami, from Portland, Maine to El Paso. Tomorrow I will be watching 2 things very closely. First, the updated ECMWF long-range run for the end of June EPO pattern shift. That is where the Alaskan Ridge builds and the heat amplifies across the western states. And second, the severe weather setup evolving for the plains through next week as the next shortwave rounds the trough. Do not miss that breakdown. Stay sharp, stay ahead of the data, and I will see you in the next one. One final thought I want to leave you with. Every time a significant climate event like this develops, I get asked whether El Niño or La Niña is a cause of individual storms. The answer is no, and this distinction matters. El Niño does not cause any specific tornado, any specific hurricane, or any specific flood event. What it does is shift the probabilities. It tilts the playing field. It makes certain types of events more likely in certain places during certain seasons. What that means for you is simple. If you live in a zone that El Niño favours for active weather this summer, whether that is severe storms in the Midwest, heat in the West, flooding in the South, or tropical threats in the Gulf, your baseline risk is elevated, not certain. Elevated. And the appropriate response to elevated risk is exactly what you're already doing right now, staying informed, understanding the pattern, and being ready to act when a specific threat develops. That is what this channel exists to help you do. Every day, all summer long. I will see you tomorrow.